today, get back into some policy. The National Party MPs, including Matt Canavan, released a manufacturing blueprint calling for the construction of a new coal-fired power station in the Hunter as part of a plan to create 800,000 new jobs over the next 15 years. To discuss this, Senator Matt Canavan joins me now, and it looks like he's in a bit of cane country. Matt Canavan, thank you for coming on the show. Great to have you. I know you're a huge supporter of Australia doing more in a manufacturing sense, making things here. That was a big discussion point, as we know, during COVID. What is this blueprint going to do to get us to where we've been talking about getting, but we haven't sort of moved along much in terms of action?
Well, where Peter, I and my national colleagues have focused is on the issues that have caused the decline in our manufacturing competitiveness. We should be proud of our manufacturing heritage. We produce a large amount of food products. We're the largest producer of alumina in the world. We've developed copper smelting techniques that are used right through the world now. But the last 10 years has seen our manufacturing sector decline precipitously. And why has that been the case? Well, it's because our energy costs have gone through the roof. They've gone up 91% for Australian manufacturers, and we've got some of the highest prices in the world. And it's because we've seen other countries increasingly disregard international trading rules. Countries like China, who have massively subsidised their own industries and are stealing manufacturing jobs from the developed world and taking them to China. We buy a lot of things from China in the shops, but that means we have less jobs here in Australia. So our plan does try and focus on those two key things that have caused the decline. So yes, let's get back to producing cheap power like coal. Let's try and find a new oil basin which will deliver cheap gas. We've got to find oil. If you want cheap gas, you've got to get the other product as well in oil. That's why our gas prices are high, because we don't have much oil left being produced at the moment. And we're also saying we should look at protecting strategic industries, doing the legwork to see, well, if China is subsidising its steel industry to the hilt, which it seems to be, well, we should take countervailing action under WTO rules and make sure we become self-sufficient in steel again. We produce the most iron ore and coking coal in the world, yet we are a net importer of steel. How absurd is that?
You talked today, the National Party plan has a coal-fired power station promise for the Hunter Valley. That's where you want to see jobs growth. 100% agree with you. I think most people watching this show would support you. But are we going to actually see bricks and mortar, Matt Canavan? Or is this something that'll sound all fabulous in a piece of paper and you'll hold it up and wave it around, but it won't get through the cabinet room?
Well, I'll just keep fighting for it, Peter. Last year, or 2 years ago now, a lot of people, said that Adani mine would never happen. I was pushing the so-and-so up a hill by trying to support it. Everyone was against it. But we got it going. We got it going because we fought for it. So same sort of process here, Peter, is yes, the today is about announcing a plan, a policy, some bits of paper. But those bits of paper mean things if you keep fighting for them, keep talking about them and get the public support. Because I think the conversations I have, especially over the past year since coronavirus, there are two things people want. They want us to make more stuff here in this country, and they want us to stand up against China's threats and bullying. And both those two things come together here. And so because the Australian people want this thing, if we keep pushing for it in the Nationals Party, we'll eventually get progress, because we live in a democracy, and that people pressure, that public pressure will persist, will actually win the day. And so to all your viewers out there who do want to see a coal-fired power station Hunter, you can help. You can help by contacting your local MP. You can help by getting on Talkback Radio. You can help by getting on Facebook and Twitter and all these new found ways of communicating to push this case, to say we as a country want to reindustrialise. We do not want to see our nation keep going down this deindustrialisation path we've been taken on for the past 10 years, because that will see us become much, much weaker as a country and less able to respond to the threats we're seeing increase in our region.
You're a former party leader who was gone with an AC today. Malcolm Turnbull was out there saying Australia's really got to, join the team net zero by 2050. Now, this quite honestly does my head in, because we're one of the only few countries out there meeting the 2030 commitments. Most of the ones sprouting for 2050 haven't got near 2030, but they don't want us to look and assess the 2030 commitments that they've failed on. They want to just push out and throw more money towards left causes to go for 2050. Is there any chance the government's going to fold here?
Oh, look, I think we've got a strong commitment right now to do what we can to lower our own emissions. So I hope we don't go down. I'm against subscribing to some 30-year off target, which doesn't mean much, but what will happen in this country is we actually, as you say, unfortunately, we've got this unfortunate tendency in Australia to actually try to implement what we say on the international stage. So if we say on the international stage we're going to cut emissions to net zero by 2050, you know very well, Peter, that will pull into gears the whole bureaucracy in Canberra, and they'll actually try and do that, as we have done and met our Kyoto targets by 2020 last year, and we're on track to meet Paris. And that will cause enormous devastation, especially to regional areas, to our beef industry, who they won't be able to exist because cows emit a lot of methane. We'll shut down all our coal-fired power stations. We'll continue to de-industrialise. And you've got to ask this question right now: why, if we can't trust China to adhere to a trade agreement we signed just 5 years ago, how can we trust them to cut their emissions over 30 years? And if we can't trust them to do that, there's no point. There's absolutely zero point in continuing these international negotiations, because China's emissions are so large that unless we can trust them to adhere and comply with international agreements, there is no point trying to solve climate change through an international negotiating process. You're better off going down the technology path and trying to develop something new and beaut that everyone will adopt anyway. But unless we get that trust back into international agreements, there's no point us handicapping our own industry when it won't deliver any environmental benefit.
Well, it's 2021, Matt. You're back and firing. I have to say, I'm disappointed you're not on the front bench, but I'm actually privately torn, because I think you can speak your mind on the back bench in a way that many front benchers are constrained and can't. Thank you for your time, as always.
No worries, Peter. You have a good year.